Welcome back to another North Carolina Tar Heels football podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI Publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is THI staff writer Trey Scott, who was with me earlier today over at the Coleman practice facility over at Carolina for UNC's first practice of fall camp. The Tar Heels will have 20 practices before they get into game week mode. The opener is September 2nd against South Carolina and Charlotte. Most of you probably already know that. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about today, what we saw today, what our takeaways were. We were at the entire practice. We're going to hit a little bit on some things that jumped out at us. We're also going to talk offense, talk defense. Quick reminder, Daily Drop is brought to you by Caldera Lab. It's a men's skincare product company, which I've been using the last several days. So I'll get into that a little bit more as we dig into this discussion. So Trey, I got to ask you, you and I didn't really spend much time with each other at all today. You were doing your thing. I was doing my thing. And while we filed some stuff afterward, we have not really had a conversation. So this is going to be very organic. So I want to know, what were a couple of things that just jumped out to you about what you saw this morning with the Tar Heels?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. We were split up, so you saw a lot of stuff that I didn't see, and I saw a lot of stuff you didn't see. But I saw a veteran team that had focus, and I seen a couple guys that were in shape that, like Travis Shaw, he was a lot skinnier, and he looked like he could play today. Caleb Hood, he's had problems with injuries. He looked a lot lighter. He was moving in and out the holes, looked real good. I just seen the focus and the energy today. I was impressed. You can tell it was a veteran team. You can tell the guys have been there before. You can tell the guys are led by veterans, and a lot more leadership was in present.
Yeah, and Travis is never going to be skinny.
Right.
But if you were to juxtapose the Travis Shaw we saw today and go on our Twitter, at Heel Illustrated on Twitter, and I posted a photo. I did a vertical. I usually don't do vertical. I usually do horizontal, but I did a vertical photo of Travis standing right behind him when he was taking a water break during a drill. And if you juxtapose that to the same photo a year ago, you don't think the only thing you'll realize is the same guy is the number. And even the number looks stretched out before. It doesn't look so stretched out. You know, like when you put something on, it sort of stretches everything out because it's too tight. Nah, he's 340 now. The goal weight is 335. And he'll get there. He's totally on his way. But more important, and we can go in this a little bit later, or we can do the Travis Shaw part right now, is that everyone I've spoken to behind the scenes, off the record in the program, say that Travis is checking all the boxes. Then I asked Mac today, afterward, we spoke to Mac for about 30 minutes after the practice, and he said, yeah, Travis is checking all those intangible boxes about being a college football player and all that goes into that, which is the disciplines of what you put in your mouth, with the disciplines of sleep, the disciplines of the mental training that they have to do, film room, and just kind of carrying himself more like a college player. And one thing we did chat about briefly, you noticed about Travis on the field today that I thought was a really good pickup, because that's another example of him taking that one step further ahead about being I wouldn't say a mature guy, but vocalizing the right way. Last year, maybe he vocalized as a young guy, as a teenager. Mm-hmm. Now he's vocalizing as a guy who's been through it a little bit, understands how to vocalize more.
You can tell he's more comfortable. Last year during pregame, you could see him doing his own thing, vibing out like most players do. But today at practice, him going up to so many players, patting them on the back, saying, hey, man, let's go, let's get at it, delivering the energy. It's not surprising, but it's surprising for a second-team D lineman, and that's where he was all day today. Yeah. He was all with the second squad. Now, of course, he's going to get the first-team snaps every now and then. He's going to be in the rotation 100%. But the maturity is there. I've seen the maturity change. He's bonding with his teammates, and it's different to see leadership from a backup. And now, don't get me wrong, we know he's a glorified backup. He's a sophomore, but it was a good change to see.
Well, these are all positive things, but the next thing that he needs to do, the next giant box he needs to check is to show them how many snaps he can give them. One of the reasons he's not a starter is they know that Kevin Hester and Miles Murphy, they know that they could give him 50 snaps if they have to. More than that. Travis didn't show that last year. And even this spring, he wasn't quite there. He can go 4 or 5 snaps, got to come out. But what happens, as Max said today, when I asked him specifically about Travis, and you can find that on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, or on our site, tarheelillustrated.com. And we tweeted it out on @Heel Illustrated. I'm doing lots of shameless promotion here. I asked him about Travis specifically, about the intangible thing about being a college guy, but also about the football. And Max said, look, there's a lot of spread offenses that don't huddle, and they get right on the ball. And if they're moving down the field and you're out there playing in the 4 technique, and it's an 8 or 9, 10 play drive, they don't have time to sub for you. You got to be able to handle those snaps. And I think that that's the mission for Travis this month. Get himself to where if it's a 10 play drive and nothing goes out of bounds, clock doesn't stop, it's rush, 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 he can be trusted to give them a 10th snap where he's just as quick off the ball and reads just as effectively in pre-snap as he does on the first snap.
And Mac also mentioned the weight. He mentioned the 375, the 340. That's a big gap. That's a huge jump. That's got to help with his endurance. It's got to help with, the rotation, be able to put in there and being able to trust him a little bit more. 375 is a lot. That's a lot for a big guy to go in there and have to play more than 5 plays. So
you mentioned,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. You mentioned Caleb Hood. Let's jump to Caleb Hood real fast. You noticed that too, and that's you and I would see each other in passing every once in a while. And actually, at one point, you did bring that up, and it happened to be when someone from UNC was standing with us, and they said, yeah, they believe that he has lost a little bit of weight. And I didn't notice it at first looking at him just standing there. It was when the ball was snapped, when he was doing drills, and it was actually the 7-on-7 was when, I think that's when you told me, and I was like, wow, because they were throwing some screens to the backs, and he caught the ball a couple of times and immediately turned upfield, where last year maybe there was that extra step to turn the corner. So that's when you lose weight, you're quicker to turn your nose upfield, but also some things he must have been working on. By all accounts, he's healthy. And if there's a little dinger here and there, we don't know about it, but he's healthy. Now he has to stay healthy, Trey, because it looks like he's worked pretty hard to get the body where it needs to be.
I'm telling you, AJ, I had to check the roster. I had to see if there was a number change. I seriously, like you said, looking at him, yeah, you can tell a little difference. But when he starts moving, he starts getting swifty in and out the holes. And there was a major difference. I believe we're going to see a major difference on the field this year. But his thing with him has always been his health. He has to be healthy. So hopefully this will help him stay on the field, get more reps, and be more of an addition.
We'll dive into the running back room a little bit later when we focus just on offense, and then we'll focus just on defense. A couple more things before we do the Caldera lab read. And I can speak with personal experience now, Caldera lab. So if I start getting prettier during these daily drops and all of other pods, you guys know why.
You look great.
Special, just Caldera. Damn, I look good. Anyway,
hey, no filters over here.
Lightning, or my nose is already really big. My daughter gives me crap about it all the time. She goes, how can you walk straight without falling forward? Because your nose weighs so much. Your nose is supposed to grow when you lie a lot. So by the time this pod ends, if I say I'm good looking, the nose is going to be all the way over there. It's going to hit the camera. What else jumped out to you today?
I would have to say the change in the offense. I know we ain't jumping into the offense yet, but I've seen a lot of different stuff that we didn't see last year. You've seen slots to the outside. You've seen Kobe on the outside. You've seen McCullum on the outside. I've seen working on the screen game. I've seen him working on the screen game with the running backs. I've seen a lot of good stuff that I didn't see last year that I think is going to be really productive and helpful for Drake. Get the ball out of Drake's hands. Let the playmakers make plays. So Drake don't have to be the man.
Well, also find ways to move the ball even in increments when Drake doesn't have to get hit.
That's right.
I think that's a big part of it, and we'll talk about that too. I want to throw the John Copenhaver element of that into the equation as well, because if you're going to throw the screens, you got to have a tight end who's split a little bit that can block downfield. And that's one of the things that John Copenhaver could do. A couple of things that jumped out to me. You know what? I actually noticed that Drake looked a little bit bigger. So I asked someone in the program, they said, yeah, well, I don't know if he's gained weight, but maybe he's a little bit thicker. I remember last August when somebody, I can't remember who it was somebody on our staff, it may have been Jacob, said, man, Drake needs to get bigger. Yeah, he's there's some thinness to him, especially with his legs. He looked maybe more upper body, just looked a little thicker today. Maybe it's because he had his jersey sleeve tucked under when some of the other QBs didn't, or just kind of looking the part. But I thought he looked a little bit thicker today. I thought Des Evans, even though he's been there for 4 years, I just kind of looked at him today. I thought, man, I remember when he first came in, like he was just thin. He wasn't built. He wasn't filled out. He looked a lot bigger today. I thought that sort of jumped at me. But I think about some other things that jumped at me as well.
Well, one more
Walker's. Yeah. Go ahead.
One more person, DeAndre Boykins. Hey, man, he's already cut up. But you can tell the muscle masses, they're packing it on. And he's just a little dude that's a tank, cut up. You definitely can tell he's been living in the weight room. So that's another one I can
pound for pound, maybe the best hitter on the team.
For sure.
Maybe, for sure. A couple of the things, Tez Walker has got speed.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say what I said when we're not recording yet. I don't think it's fair to put that on him, but I think the upside is significant. And we'll go on offense too, but let's remember to talk about the Pacer and McCollum out there together and some of the stuff we saw today, because they want to get over the top of the defense. And you got Pacer, McCollum, and Walker out there. You're getting over the top of the defense every once in a while for sure. A couple of the things that jumped out to me too was I thought that the offensive line looked a little bit thinner, a little quicker. Zach Rice has lost some weight. Some of the drills that they were doing, there's more quickness type drills, there's more stay low drills, there's more have better balance drills. And that's one of the things that in pass protection, which has been an issue, and it's not just been the offensive line, Trey. Pass protection, sacks can be attributed to a lot of things outside of offensive line. But if the guys up front have good hands and they've got good feet and they've got good balance, so when they're in a situation, they're kind of back, and here comes the rush a little bit, they can meet whatever blow is given. If whatever the pass rusher is trying to do, they have the balance and ability to react to that a little bit better. Those are some of the things that Randy Clements has been working on with the offensive line, which should reveal an improvement, reflect on an improvement at some point in time if these guys could actually do it. I don't have any reason to believe that they can't. So if there's going to be a significant uptick anywhere on offense this year, I think that it needs to be with pass protection, because you don't want Drake getting hit, because after Drake, I think there's a significant drop off. But the other thing too is because at this point in time, with as old as a group is up front, if they can't pass protect with a third different offensive lineman or offensive line coach, then maybe some of these guys can't pass protect. I think they can. Talking to people behind the scenes, they believe that a lot of these progresses have been made, that they are getting better as they move along. And now with fall camp here and the fact that in practice number 6, they're going to be live action with full pads, they're going to have a chance to test those guys a little bit more. That to me is going to be one of the 3 or 4 things I uber focus on early on in that South Carolina game. What does that line of scrimmage look like? Both sides of the ball, but certainly the offense. When they pass and those guys get back into pass protection mode, what is their balance like? How quick are their feet? How do they react when something happens that's a little bit out of the norm in pass protection? How do they react and maybe keep somebody from Drake when that wasn't happening last year and didn't happen with Sam 2 years ago? Anything else before we do?
Well, I want to piggyback off what you said. I want to see the opposite. I want to see the run game. I want the blocking game. They have to get a push up front, and it's not just for the offense sake, for the defensive sake. The longer the offense can stay on the field, the less the defense has to stay on the field. When you got Drake May scoring in 30 seconds, the defense is coming right back on the field. I mean, they're on the field for a long time. That was last year. We don't know what's going to happen this year, but the run game has to be established. And Coach Brown was talking about the new tight end coach, Kitchens, about how he preaches and he tips his hat on blocking. He's not going to let nobody get away without blocking.
Down, blocking down. John Copenaver talked about that last week in Charlotte. Yep. Blocking down. I mean, they hear blocking down all the time, and they have 3 really good tight ends. Kamara Morales is okay. Bryson Nesbitt, they will tell you, has to get better blocking down. He's considered the NFL guy, but so is Copenaver. Yep. Coaches believe Copenaver is going to play in the NFL because he does everything pretty well. So that's going to be important. And I agree with you about the run game thing. It's running in short yardage stuff, short yardage situations. 3rd and 2. Got to get that thing. Don't go to a 4th down. Don't force the coaches to have to make a decision. And then when you get in the red zone, when you got a guy like Drake who could see the field, if the linebackers have to be aware of those counters, that's going to allow Drake to really kind of have his pick of the litter, if you will, if he pulls and rolls out or something like that. They can freeze those linebackers for a split second. And I think you're going to see more stuff like that. I think you're going to see a little bit less RPO under Chip Lindsey. You're going to see a little bit more conventional stuff, which is the screen game. I mean, the screen game has blockers out there. Back in the day, you play guard, you're rolling a screen out there, you're pulling, and you're a blocker out there. So it's going to be really interesting to see some of the things. Before we get into finishing the offense, as we've gone pretty hard into the offense already, I do got to ask you a question.
All right.
Now, I've known you for almost a year now. I've met your beautiful wife. I don't know if you've met mine, but you've seen mine certainly on Facebook. You and I married up. There's no doubt about it.
Sure.
The great Brett Friedlander likes to say, I outkicked my coverage. Well, I had more than outkicked my coverage in my. We've got lucky that we marry beautiful women who accept our faces the way they are. But you know what, Trey? They want our faces looking better. I know that your wife looks at you and says, honey, I love you so much, but I want your face looking better because I want to love you even more. I know you hear that from her, right?
Well, the thing is, I'm the old man. I'm married. I got a couple years on my wife. So, and a sports writer, we stay up late nights. We get the bags underneath our eyes. So I definitely have been considering it. And I probably definitely need it. I'm going to try it out soon.
I'm just under 5 years older than my wife, so I lucked out and married young as well. But you're right. I've taken 27 days off in 9 years in this job. So you can see it here, you can see it here, you can see it here. And that's one of the great things about Caldera Lab, which is our new sponsor here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. It's an amazing men's skincare product line. And I know from personal experience, because I've done it for the last 5 nights. I said, guys, send me a thing. I'll be a guinea pig, although I don't need to be a guinea pig because it's proven. It's a proven product. They specialize in all kinds of men's skincare stuff. So, and what's interesting is when I first found out that we were going to have this as a sponsor, because I hired this guy to get us more sponsors and stuff, to a variety of sponsors. When he said men's skincare, I'm like, men's skincare? Because I have a friend up in Virginia who was telling me a couple months ago about, hey, you should try these men's skincare products. They actually work. I'm like, well, I'm not a skincare guy. I'm a wash my face, shampoo, and I'm out, right? She says, no, it's okay. Guys can use skincare now. There's no phobia. You shouldn't have a phobia about it. There's no kind of weird status for a guy that uses skincare. You're not a metrosexual, wherever that tag is. It's a regular thing that guys that no matter what you do, if you're married, I took my wife to a movie last night. I want to take her to more movies. So she looks at me and she's got that gleam. She says, boy, my husband looks pretty good now. She might go to more movies with me, right? Your wife too. But if you're not married, you don't have a girlfriend, the first impression that a woman has of you or a potential significant other has of you is your face. Before you say anything, it's your face. That's what you see. So you want to make a strong first impression. And if you have a face that doesn't have a bunch of wrinkles and you don't look, and if you look 40 when you're 48 or something like that, a woman's going to know that you take care of yourself. You take pride in how you look. You take pride in how you present yourself. It's not just a gruff guy who doesn't want to do things like this because guys aren't supposed to use skin creams. It's okay to use skin creams. I can do it. And that's wild because I never thought I would ever do it, Trey. But I am, because Caldera Lab, it's 30, 45 seconds. I rub it on the face, and they have the eye stuff you can just put around here. Deadly serious, man. In less than 2 minutes, it's on my face, it's off, my face is wiped off, and I'm walking out of the restroom feeling like a new man because it does kind of feel good on my face. You need to try it. We need to get you involved here and see how much progress you can make with it too, Trey.
Let's do it. And we'll judge from one podcast to the next and see what to do.
Absolutely. So here's why it's good for you guys. And I'll close on this. All North Carolina fans, all Carolina Tar Heel fans can save 20% on all Caldera Lab products. You can go to calderalab.com. All you have to do is use the promo code THI. That's us, THI, simple as that. If you know us, you can remember the promo code. Go to calderalab.com. Say, you know what? I'm gonna be as good looking as AJ and Trey, and I'm gonna use men's skincare products, and my wife's gonna give me a wink. and we can roll from there. So go ahead and try it, guys. If Jacob Turner's going to do it too, because he said Carly, his wife, is all over him about using skincare products. And she's been doing that since before we heard about Caldera Lab. So make sure you go to calderalab.com, save 20%, promo code THI. I know this is a long pitch, but I was looking forward to doing this because usually Jacob does the pitches because I wanted to have some fun with it. And it's true. I mean, I have used it for the last 5 nights. Just measure my face here the next few weeks and see if there's any progress. I've read that you should be able to see a little bit of it should be a noticeable difference within a couple of weeks. So we'll see. We'll see. And we'll be honest with you. And you guys can see for yourself because I'm doing podcasts pretty much every day.
I'm down.
So let's go to the offense, Trey.
All right.
We've already talked about a couple of those things that we hit on. I want to go to the receiver aspect because I like to, I know a lot about the program when I go in there, but I try to allow myself to sort of pull back and see, okay, what catches my eye? It is impossible to watch the offense do anything without your eyes gravitating to Tez Walker.
Yep.
And the trio, Tez Walker, Kobe Paysour, Nate McCollum, JJ Jones. JJ Jones, highly competitive. I actually saw him today run a route. The ball was underthrown, and he was ticked. Mm-hmm. In a good way. He wasn't ticked, come on, man, can't you throw the ball better now? He was ticked because it didn't work because he's competitive on each snap. He also knows he's playing for a spot in rotation. He started last year, but it's highly competitive in there. I think the room collectively is better than it's been for a while. Walker is a potential NFL guy. Ask Georgia and some of these are Washington. Ask them what they think of Tez Walker. Nate McCollum caught 60 passes last year in 11 games at Georgia Tech with 3 different quarterbacks, none of whom were any good, okay? Kobe Paysour, in the 3 games he filled in for Josh Downs last year, he caught 20 passes with 3 touchdowns. He could play. JJ Jones is good, especially if he's healthy all along. Gavin Blackwell's got tremendous potential. Andre Green out there today doing some stuff that I thought, okay, he's taking steps forward. We saw Christian Hamilton running some routes with the twos out there today as well. The wide receiver group on this team, they caught my eye, Trey, and they were fun to watch and they were hard to not look at because every time, sometimes it's like eye candy. My eyes just went right to them and I would watch one of them run a route and say, wow, they have the potential to have a phenomenal wide receiver group this year.
Tez Walker gets all the talk and but he should. Man, his route running tree is unlimited. He can run every route on the book, and he gets open. And that's not to say, okay, well, he was going against Carolina's defense. Carolina's defense was getting after him. We'll get about that. We'll talk about that in a few. But he was getting underneath. He was getting whatever the DB gave him, and Drake was feeding him the ball. Now, Nate McCollum, I was unsure about Nate until today. Today, the offense almost went through Nate. They found ways to get McCollum the ball, whether it was screens, slots, slot drags. They really look like they've been on the same page for a long time. It don't look like this is his first year at Carolina. You can tell these guys are veterans and have been playing football for a long time. And Drake May was just giving it to him. I really like what I saw today.
Well, one of our moments of passing, we stopped and we were talking about the receivers a little bit, and right in front of us, like 5 feet in front of us, we had McCollum on the outside and Paysour a little bit on the inside. And Kobe told us back in the spring that he'd been working a lot on the outside. Nate's going to be more slot. Well, they're going to run both. And that's part of the thing. They're going to drive defenses crazy with where they line up. But they both basically ran go routes. Mm-hmm. And they got behind the defense. I'm not sure the ball was caught because we were standing on the sideline. There were players in our way, so it's hard to see and like much bigger dudes. But the fact that they have that, and oh, by the way, on the other side might be a Tez Walker. On the other side might be a Blackwell. It might be a JJ Jones. You could do that sometimes and have multiple tight ends on the field and really.
That's right. We saw multiple.
And really give defenses pre-snap fits. And I think that there's more variety with what they can do now by running guys long, running guys underneath. In fact, one of the things that I know they're going to do is Chip Lindsey and his offense, he's got a couple of drops. So Drake takes a snap and he's got a little bit of a drop. And I think it gives time to have those routes run and then drag one of those guys underneath the defense and catch the ball and then use their speed to turn up field because they've all got wheels.
Yeah, another thing I like about this group, there's no prima donnas. There's no superstars out there. Are they superstars on the field? Most definitely. But they're out there interchangeable, coming in and out of the field. You can't tell that Tez Walker is a big time NFL recruit. You just can't tell because he's not flashy. But when he gets on that field and he runs them routes, he's open almost every single play. It's very impressive.
What was the most impressive? Okay, we said we didn't see each other very much today, but we actually did because we were watching this for a little bit because we wanted to watch them. I think we were both drawn to them. But the most impressive route I saw today, I think you know what one it was. It was when Tez was wide on the right and he got his body in front of Marcus Allen, who's a starter at corner, and he showed tremendous strength in getting in front of him and then keeping himself sort of with some distance, and he got the ball. I think it was may have been Connor actually passing that one, Connor Harrell, but it was a strong move. And if he's got that, if he's a guy that's strong enough to get inside and keep the ball, you just said he can run the whole route tree. Well, that's it. To me, that would be the last one you would wonder if he can do, and he showed today he could do that.
And he's not as strong. It's a little. I'm getting ahead of myself with this comparison. It reminds me of King Nix. Like King Nix would get underneath, make the hard catches. Now, King was a little bit more thicker, stronger hands, but he was really doing work underneath.
A little longer, too. I think Akeem was a little taller.
Yeah. But he was, both of them can run any route on the route tree, and he was doing it today, especially the underneath. I was very impressed with underneath because when you hear about Tez Walker, you hear about his deep threat, his speed, that speed, that one play he did against Georgia where he was going 20-something miles per hour. You always hear about them plays, but you don't know about these quick, short hitters, and it was there today.
I watched that play last night. He got a great block on the edge on that play. Wide receiver block. A great, because without that block, the play doesn't happen. But that's why you have speed guys like him, because if everybody else does their job, they have the ability to take it to the house. And he does. He scored 11 touchdowns last year. Right. I think he was tied for the MAC lead in touchdowns. So he also had a 47-yarder at Washington. And then the year before, he had something at Oklahoma as well. So Mac actually said today, look, he's not going to be starstruck out there. Right. He's going to roll out there in Charlotte. They're full house, game day, ABC, prime time. I mean, that's the kind of guy I think that will be fueled by that, because some of his best performances have been in really big stages. He met those challenges. And I think that he's going to lift up the room because of that. Okay, let's move over to quarterback real fast, and then we'll go talk defense. I'm going to go first very quickly. I said what I said about Drake. Drake threw one ball today, and I didn't see it. That wasn't a great ball. And Max said that Kobe Paysor was a receiver, and Kobe said something to the effect. Somebody said something to him, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember more clearly than me, but that ball was underthrown. You ran a great route, and the ball was underthrown. And he told Mac, he said, that's okay. He'll do it next time. He always does, or something like that.
That was actually the play that we couldn't see when McCullough and Kobe was lined up.
That was the play?
And we couldn't see the end. He overthrew him. Yep, that was it.
Well, that was it. Otherwise, Drake, he's exquisite. He looks – last year, the first practice, there was no media coverage. It was the second practice, which was a Saturday. We were allowed to watch the whole thing. And I'll never forget Jacob Turner standing at around the 40 on the tunnel side of the field, because the practice was inside the stadium. And Drake is just throwing some basic stuff. And I walked up to him, and you talk about the route tree, you talk the passing tree here, right? Doing long right, long left, center, short, just kind of working all that different stuff. And I walked up to Jacob, and I just kind of said behind him, I said, he can hit it, make every throw. He turned around, he goes, unbelievable. I think he put out an expletive or something like that. And we're like, yeah, he's just a stud. And Dina King had said, even when Drake arrived, she goes, because she's a big Sam Howell guy. She knew Sam, he was her player of the year, but she said, Drake's going to be better than Sam. and he is, because he does everything well. And what we saw today was, I think, a more refined version of what we saw this time a year ago. It was the second practice, July 29th last year, first practice, August 3rd this year. We saw a more refined product. That's a guy who's ready to have a massive season. Massive season.
Matt Brown hit it right on the head. Yeah, we're not even impressed with the throws anymore. We're shocked when he doesn't make the throw, and it's so unfair to Drake. It's because he's human. There's gonna be variables in football where he's not gonna make the throw, but he played so good last year, putting balls on money. And when you see him overthrow Kobe, you're like, oh, is that Drake? But like Coach said, Kobe came right back and said, oh, he's going to get me. They have full confidence in Drake.
Yeah.
Drake looked great. I was watching him do some individual drills, moving it out through balls and making throws, and he was hitting it on the money every time. He looked good.
And by fair, I think you're speaking more, correct me if I'm wrong, I shouldn't speak for you, but you're speaking more just in terms of just the expectations are so off the charts that he's close to the point, and maybe Kelly Williams is at this point too at Southern Cal, where they can only disappoint.
That's right.
So I think people are going to start looking for warrants. Last year was the amazement year. This year is going to let's pick apart everything now, see if there's anything he can't do. So he's going to have to brace himself for that. And that's going to be interesting to see. But I think I don't think he pays attention for the most part. He doesn't seek it out. He's one of those guys that last year we didn't get him every Tuesday during the season. He's okay with it. He's not a limelight seeker. He's just one of those uber competitive dudes that's so mission minded, and that when he looks ahead to his mission, whatever else could be in that line of vision isn't there. It's like when you, I think if you film something with your camera vertical or horizontal, vertical like this, and you put it on a big video screen, and it's blurred out except the middle part of the video. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I think he blurs everything else out. So to him, the mission right now is get better this week, get better next week, get better the week after that, South Carolina. Then get better, App State. All the other crap, I think he just swats it away really easily because of his competitiveness, and he's so picky about his own game. People could tell him till the cows come home that you're the greatest thing since whenever. And he's like, what are you kidding me? I made 3 bad throws last week.
And we saw it last week at ACC kickoff. We asked some, well, when you get an ACC kickoff, you got all the media guys that's not usually there with Drake. So they asked all the Heisman questions. And he's not studying that mess. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it's a personal accomplishment. He's worried about right now, how's he going to get better? And Drake comes from a great family. Everybody knows who is, Mark played quarterback at Carolina. Everybody knows Luke was his brother, national championship basketball player. So he doesn't have that wow factor like I'm in college football. It's almost like he's been there before. He has that cool factor, like he does great under pressure. The Heisman talk doesn't bother him. He doesn't engage in it. So I think that really – Carolina couldn't have a better leader under center right now in a time of the NIL and all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How concerned are you about North Carolina if something happens to Drake and he can't go?
100% honest, that would be big trouble. I'm not fond of the backup quarterbacks, meaning they haven't showed me the capabilities to lead this team in the air. Connor Harrell, I seen improvements on his ball, throwing spirals and tight spirals, but like today he got pick 6 by Doc Chapman.
Yeah,
and it was pretty easy. Well, Chapman made it look easy, but if
you had a veteran guy who stepped in and made a play there, but if I recall correctly, and the staff's obviously looked at the film, it looked like he sort of telegraphed that throw. He kept his eyes on that option too long, and Don Chapman just read it and picked.
He's just not a regular pocket guy. He wants to get out, which I get it. He's a little bit smaller than the Drake. He needs to get out, uses athleticism. But when he gets out of that pocket, he's running to his target, looking at his target, throwing at his target. Yeah. You hit it right on the head. He telegraphs some passes.
Yeah, and there are times where you think, okay, that's what the coaches want from him. So can he do it the next snap and the next snap and the next snap? And I think with him, it's not so much that he doesn't have the ability to do it. It's just that he hasn't found the level of consistency yet. And that's the whole thing. You could be a great quarterback 95% of the time, but what happens at 5%? If you throw the pick 6 to Don Chapman, that could cost you a game. So quarterbacks can't be perfect. It's like pitchers in baseball. You could throw 85 pitches and you could be incredible at 78 of them. But what happens on those other 7?
Right.
Where does the ball end up? Does it end up in the seats? That costs you a game. So a quarterback's the same kind of situation. And that's what they're working on with him. It was practice number 1. And I saw Jacoby Criswell not look very good in practice in the second practice that we saw last year. He didn't look very good, but there were times where he was much better than that overall. It just wasn't a great practice. So we get to see him again in a week with full pads. We'll evaluate again. I do think the upside's pretty good when the upside's there. It's just a matter of he has to climb a ladder seemingly to get to that upside each time. And you don't want a guy who has to climb the ladder every time the ball is snapped. You already want him up there. The ball's snapped up there, and that's where the play begins. You don't want him to elevate to that because when he doesn't get up there, that means his game is down here, and that could be dangerous.
And I think that's another reason why it's extremely important for them to establish the run game this year. I was going to say this earlier. We got carried away with something else, but teams are eyeing on Drake. They're going to be eyeing on Drake. To help Drake out, they have to get the run game going. And if something goes down and Drake's got to be out a quarter or a series, if you can rely on the run game and don't have to pass it 3 straight times, that will definitely help Harold a lot.
Yeah, I think Phil Long is a really good offensive coordinator, and I think 90% of what he does is fantastic. He ran Sam too much 2 years ago, and then he ran Drake a lot last year and ran more as the year went on because I thought that offensively the focus got too tunnel vision on Josh Downs and Antoine Green. It wasn't a mushroom that it should have been. It should have been more of a mushroom approach because when Josh Downs was out, and think about the App State game, he's spreading it around all over the place. Yep. And then I think that offense bogged down a little bit. So Chip Lindsey doesn't want to run the quarterback a lot. Drake can run and will run, but he's got to understand that it's not just for his own future, but for the sake of this team, he can't get hit a ton. Yep. He simply cannot get hit a ton because after him, right now, they're not as in good a shape as they were last year with Criswell behind him. They're not as in good a shape as they were 2 years ago with May behind Howell and so on. And I'll tell you that as much as Connor Harrell is clearly the number 2 guy right now, I was surprised to see Jefferson Boaz get reps in front of Tad Hudson as the 3rd quarterback. Those are the 4 that are on scholarship. I think Jefferson Boaz throws a good ball. Now, I don't know what else he does in practice. I don't see a lot of other things. I know that he's a guy that was the athlete of the year in high school in this state. He's someone that Dina has always been very high on. I know that when he was at the Showtime camp the summer going into his senior year, I thought he was the best athlete there, but he was playing tight end. And you just kind of look over there and say that, boy, if something crazy happened, something happened to Drake, Harold struggled, and Mac's like, hey, we got to give him a shot. Just kind of looks like someone who might be able to get the job done a little bit, but that's just from my distant perspective, Trey. I'm not around every day like they are, so they obviously know a lot more than that. I just think that there's some intrigue. Maybe it's because we don't know that much about him, so it's harder to pick at, and he's more surprising on a positive side, and maybe Connor Harrell is surprising a little bit more, not as much on a positive side because we're still trying to see in his game what you saw from Sam and see from Drake, thinking that he could be the heir apparent, although I think that they'll go out and look in the portal, especially if they don't have confidence that Connor gets his game to a consistent level, which the other part of that, Trey, is when are they going to have opportunities to truly see him get tested? If Drake doesn't get hurt, how are they going to know? It's going to be very difficult. Consistent practices are a good start. And he ran scout team a lot last year, wasn't always consistent with that. He had a pretty good spring, but at some point, they're going to have to see him in some live action aside from facing Campbell to get a gauge on him. So I think that the quarterback situation, if something happens to Drake, will make things very interesting for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on when we keep going to practices and watching the other quarterbacks. I have a bunch of videos I have to go through. I did a lot of videos on the quarterbacks and their quarterback drills, and something I really want to go back and look at and see how each guy looked.
I went ahead and uploaded 2, because just so people know, we're not going to put 500 videos up today because the ACC limits us, or Carolina limits us to 2.5 minutes a day. Of practice videos. So I put up 2 earlier. It's on our channel, and I tweeted one of them out. I'll tweet another one out a little bit later tonight. We are running this video tonight. It's just basic stuff. One of them's kind of interesting with this giant ball as they were rolling at the quarterbacks, forcing them to move and that kind of thing. We'll have better videos moving forward, but I'd like to show people the raw, basic practice drills so they could see. A lot of people just go for the clips and everything. I like raw stuff. So that's a lot of the stuff that you're going to find, not just a quarterback, but some of the other positions. Let's flip over to defense.
All right.
Defense, the thing that really kind of struck me was that on our depth chart, and I'm going to say this with quotations, like 100,000 quotations. I called it a loose depth chart in the headline. I don't want people to read too much into this because it's day one. No pads. They're getting lots of looks, putting guys in different groupings and that kind of thing. But I counted 29 guys that got reps, 11v11, and some of the more serious 7v7 on the defensive side of the ball. And that doesn't include Will Hardy, who wasn't participating. So your thoughts on the defense with all the different bodies we saw go on the field and come off the field?
There's a lot. And not only just different bodies going on and off, with older, mature veterans. Me and you talked about this. They have up to 20, 25 players that's going to get playing time that's at least a junior, senior, grad players. And not only were they out there, they were competing. They had a little edge. They were chippy. You didn't get the last year Tony Grimes somebody catches a hitch on him and he just comes up and makes the tackle. No, somebody catches a hit, they're coming up, jamming the ball, breaking it loose. They were there to fight the day. And I really like what I saw intensity-wise and the energy with the defense.
Think of the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
This old guy, let's pop some old guy names off in the secondary. Gio Biggers.
Mm-hmm.
Don Chapman, we already talked about it. Armani Chapman comes over from Virginia Tech. He's not a starter right now. He's not in the first team right now. He started, 25, 28 games with the Hokies. Came over to played there. He wants to play here. Derek Allen, graduate, comes over from Georgia Tech. You've got Legend Cavazos, who spent some time at Ohio State, second year in the program now. He wants to get on the field. You Hardy's a second-year guy, but it's funny. Mac was asked about him after practice, like, "Oh, we already know what Will has." He kind of spoke about him like he was a veteran, but he is a football veteran in his mind. Dad's a coach. He's been living, breathing, and eating the sport since he was 2 years old. So he kind of has an older football mind, plays like an older guy as well. Some of the older guys out there, Stick Lane, his graduate, coming over from Georgia State. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. Antavius Stick Lane, but he goes by Stick, and apparently he can hit. There's some older guys over there. Who else did I miss?
I'm not sure, but I do have a question.
But DeAndre Boykins is a third-year guy now who played almost 900 snaps last year. I think that qualifies him as an old guy now too.
For sure.
Yeah.
I got a question. Was Derek Allen out today? I know he was there, but
he was out there.
That was he participating? I don't think I remember.
I saw him do some stuff. I put him in our notes for the depth chart. I saw him do some stuff early on in 7-on-7. I don't recall seeing him in 11-on-11, but I wasn't looking for him.
Okay.
Another there was another name on defense. I just drew a blank. Anyway, let's go and talk about our defense. It'll come to my mind here in a few minutes.
The piggyback on the secondary, the offense was completing passes, but everything was underneath. And it wasn't like the secondary was backing off in a cover 4 or deep thirds. They were up. You had 2 safeties back. Some of them come up, some of them, fluctuate. But I thought the back half of the secondary against Drake May, they held their own. I saw no deep balls completed.
I don't think they tried to stress them too much with the deep ball. I thought they were working a lot on the shorter stuff, but I agree with you. The guy I was thinking of was DJ Jones, who was a running back. He was actually he was backing up Boykins at the star. And another guy who's not old, but keep an eye on. I was talking with someone in the program today, and actually I spoke with someone last week. It was last Monday, I think it was, who really knows a thing or two about what's going on there, who said, keep an eye on Tayon Holloway. He's our third corner right now, which would put him ahead of Armani Chapman. Today, I talked to someone in the program during practice, and he said, Tayon's just smooth. That's the direct quote. He's springy. Everyone thought that Tony Grimes would be springy. He would be an interception machine. I'm not saying Tayon Holloway is going to be an interception machine. He is, by the way, from a similar area. But he's very springy. He kind of has a glide to him, and he's going to get a little bit of a look at star. Caleb Koss, by the way, the true freshman, got some look at star today. That was interesting to see with him out there. But Tayon Holloway is somebody that might not be on the average fan's radar right now, but by the time you get into mid-October and they're playing Miami at home on October 14th, you might see Tayon Holloway out there for 15, 20 snaps in some important situations in the game.
What I like about Tayon is you don't know he's there, which is a great thing for a DB. If you're not getting picked on, that means you're doing your job. And he was getting his reps when he wasn't on the first team, but he was definitely getting first team reps. You can definitely tell they liked the kid, and he held his own today for sure. He's going to play this year for sure.
The second position group I watched were the Jacks. The first one was defensive line. I spent more time with the defensive line than any other position group today. I spent some time with the Jacks. And we've talked before, Jacob and I have done some pods, Brandon and I have done some pods where I think with the first two, they're in really good shape. Kamen Rucker is just a football player. He shouldn't have a position. It's just the FBP. That's his position. Well, what's that? Football player. And the NFL is going to look at him that way too. A lot of people in the program think he's an NFL guy. Amari Gaynor came to North Carolina after having a really good career at Florida State, where his dad played, and he grew up a Florida State diehard. Came to North Carolina, it's a business decision to get to the NFL so he could play Jack, because he needed to show that he could rush the passer a little bit better and had those skills. I think they're in really good shape there at Jack. The question was, especially when Malachi Hamrick went down, likely for the year, what would the backup situation be like? So in the spring, Trey, I'm watching practice, and I'm watching Tyler Thompson, kid from here in Raleigh, it's Cary, Panther Creek, and I'm watching Jabron Harvey. Jabron Harvey's thicker. He looks a little more physically ready for college. And I look at Tyler Thompson, like, dude's 205. I mean, he can't play Jack. So literally, as soon as the team breaks up after they do the stretching and they meet with Mac, they go to their position groups. Tyler Thompson runs right by him. And I had to do a double take and then I looked at the roster to make sure he was still wearing number 40, because I saw some thickness everywhere in him that didn't exist 3 months ago. He's put on at least 15. I swear it looks like he's put on more. He looks like a Jack now. He looks like he'd handle some responsibility at Jack. And I know that the staff really likes him. He's incredibly fundamentally sound, and he's got football player. He's got a little bit of that Kamen Rucker in him, just not as big as Kamen, not as thick as Kamen. I actually think the Jack position is in pretty good shape. Those guys will be the understudies, he and Jabron Harvey, and Hamrick when he comes back. They know what they're looking for that position now. And they've recruited to that. And when guys come in, they're putting them right there and saying, you're going to learn how to play Jack, which is a jack of all trades, right? And I really, really liked what I saw from that position. I think the future's really bright with the Jack position. And I'm not disparaging Jay Bateman at all. But the hybrid position, they never figured out what they wanted there before. And the Jack is supposed to be, a hybrid of the hybrid, right? Or a more foundational hybrid. I think they have it figured out. I think they know what they want. And I think they have a pecking order. They have 5 guys in that room right now, if you include Hamrick when he's healthy. And when the other 2 move on, they'll have at least 3 next year in that room who I think can help them out. I think they're in pretty good shape there.
I agree. I've seen the athleticism. Like you said, they're hybrid players, and just by looking at them, they pass the eye test 100%. They look good. We just need to see it on the field. We need to see more of that practice. We need to see them get after it. I think they're going to be in good shape. People think I'm crazy for this, but I think the front 7 is going to make a lot of noise this year. They know that they're talked about. I feel like everybody has a chip on their shoulder, and you can see the energy. You can see it was contagious. Everybody was feeding off each other. I agree. I think the Jack position is going to be just fine.
I think there's some competition up front, especially on end. Jacoby Cowan versus Bo Atkinson. And quite frankly, Des Evans. Des is built. He fits the script. If you have to take the football team, if they're chartered flights somehow aren't working, they have to go take commercial and they walk to the airport. If you got Des out front, it's not a bad thing, right? Des is going to look good. He's going to make people think, well, holy crap, I'm going to go bet on this team this weekend. But he's still, again, we talk about consistency. He hasn't become the consistent player that they wanted to become. Maybe he will now. I really thought that he worked hard today. I saw some vibrancy with Des today that I haven't always seen in the past. But the thing that struck me, it was Bo Atkinson. second year. I mean, he's kind of built a little bit like a traditional defensive end, but a little traditional defensive end with some of the modern day skills. He's got good hand placement. He's a guy that looks like he can get around an offensive tackle, but he's strong enough. He gets doubled. He can work with the double, and he's just still building his body. There's something about him that kind of jumped out a little bit at me today when I was watching the guys on the end. And he's going to compete with Jacoby Cowan, who I thought came on and played a little bit better as the season went on last year.
And I think this hits on what Mac was talking about. Injuries last year happened because of depth. And immediately we saw today the rotation of the guys. They were the second team guys. They were just going in and out. And I'm talking about front seven. Secondary, too. But the front seven, I felt like whoever got in there, they could have been on the first team. Like you could have put them in there and they'll be fine on the first team. And that's going to be a major difference this year when you got Bo being able to come in and being able to start. Matt gave us a great quote. He said, Dean Smith and Bill Gutlers told him the key to coaching is playing time. However, the backups have to be able to play. And I think we've seen that from the backups today, including Bo. He held his own. He showed that what he had. He showed that his improvement, and it's going to show on the field this year.
Yeah, well, you'd think that it should. There's so much for that group to improve on. And I think the addition of Ted Monachino is huge. He's a pass rush specialist. He's coached some of the best pass rushers in the NFL. He was with the Falcons last year. And he came in to coach Tim Cross. And again, I spent a lot of time over the defensive line room today, defensive line area, listening to Tim Cross, who, by the way, had the greatest line of the day. I think you had a good line from somebody that we can't say on here probably, although we are allowed to cuss on here. Jacob does sometimes. But Tim Cross said when they were working on a drill where they were – the old days, we called it a swim technique. I don't know what they call it now, but it was sort of like a swim technique where you want to get by the lineman and – if the play's coming there and make the play, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, step on their toes and smell their breath, or step on their toes and smell their breath.
That's the old football come out.
Yeah, he repeated it like 3 times, and then he was looking at Dez. Step on their toes and smell the damn breath. And I kind of looked around and said, there's a confidence. Tim Cross is always confident. But he's a guy that was criticized a lot last year. And I was told after the bowl game in San Diego by a really good source that Tim Cross wasn't going anywhere. Some people reported that he was. No, he's not going where the kids love him. We get rid of Tim Cross, there'll be mass exodus in that room because the kids love him so much. So what Mac did, and this is why Mac's such a damn good head coach and CEO, he brought in someone to coach Tim Cross. And they worked a lot on pass rush moves today. And it was some different stuff than what I've seen before, because Cross has been there the whole time Mac has. I saw a group that looked a little leaner. They looked a little quicker, looked a little bit more agile. When I say leaner, I'm talking collectively, not just Travis, but, Kevin Hester, who was a basketball player and then started playing football for his senior year and suddenly put on all this weight. Takes time sometimes to learn how to play with that weight and combine those old basketball skills, those basketball traits with football and mesh all those things. Because basketball, you use a lot of different parts of your body all the time that maybe you don't use as much in football. Make that blend and become morph into an athletic football player who can get by an offensive lineman. I think he has that potential. There's some people in the program think he has a chance to play on Sundays. And then you look at what they brought in the second wave. I watched KBJ a lot because he's missed so much time with injuries. And he was like a rival's top 100 kid or near top 100 kid coming out of high school. And he's just been saddled with injuries. And, I still want to see more, but he's a guy that they believe still has a lot of potential, that they think that he's healthy in the way that he should be healthy if there weren't any injuries. So they're expecting a lot from him. And I think Travis is sort of the X factor there. And Tamari Fox, they bring in Tamari Fox, didn't have him last year. I think he kind of does the Reva Hossack thing for this group. And he actually was one guy that looked significantly thicker, and he's the strongest dude on the team. And I ran a photo of him on Twitter. So go look on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure I tweeted it out there. I mean, he's like a bowling ball in there, but he's athletic. He's really smart. He's a gap control guy, but he also can move. Now, I remember he got snaps as a freshman back in 2019 because they needed somebody to come in the game and get some reps. And because they couldn't play Aaron Crawford and Jason Strobridge all the time. And he actually gave them some pretty solid reps. So now, after having time off for a year, not time off, he played scout team. He wasn't engaged getting himself ready to play in a game. And one of the things I asked Mac about today was what he brings to the room in addition to the football stuff. And like, he's a voice to be heard. Well, Vahasa gave him some of that maturity and that straightforwardness a year ago, and they needed it. And I think Tamari Fox can give them that this year, and he could be very valuable. Even if he's only playing 25 snaps a game, he could be a very, very valuable piece to that front line. And I think if he plays to the level that some people think he can, that's another chink in the armor there. It's another piece to the puzzle, rather, where it's not just Travis has to be really good and Bo Atkinson better than expected. They all have to be good. And some of them each week have to be really good when the other ones are just good in order for this line to be what it should be.
You're spot on that, AJ. I'm really fond of the rotation on the D line right now. I think those guys are ready to contribute. Mac hit on Travis. He said it takes college football 3 years. Travis is in his second year.
Yeah.
He said you can take a five-star basketball player. He's ready to go now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 375 freshman linemen. He had to learn. Same thing with Hester. They had to learn. They had to get their body right. And I think they're coming into their own. I think the D-line is going to be ready to rotate. It's going to be more than just 4 guys.
They should. I'm going to say they should. I'm not going to say they will because I have to see it in order to fully believe it. The parts are there. The parts have been there, to be honest with you. It's just whatever reason, some guys were just sort of trying to catch up. I think they have a contingent now that is best suited to march forward, taking multiple steps forward, which they have to do. If the defensive line doesn't take multiple significant steps forward, this team will not reach its goals.
Gotcha.
And ultimately, it's going to be in the trenches. Very quickly, we haven't talked linebacker. Power Eccles and Cedric Gray. Everyone knows about them. I think they're better positioned to actually develop some depth, some quality depth that the staff trusts behind him. Mark Campbell, the true freshman, keep an eye on him. Sebastian Cheeks is finally healthy. He had what a devastating year last year for him, his first year in school, losing his father and then having the injury and everything. New lease on life for him. He actually looked really quick today. And even behind them with Caleb Loveley, we got to see him today for the first time, and Deuce Caldwell's back there with the third team. They actually have bodies in that room now. Now it's just a matter of coaching them up and getting them ready. So I actually think that for one of the position groups that's identified as having major depth issues and questions, I do think that there's some solutions in that room where a year ago, I didn't think there were any solutions in that room. It was Power and Cedric, and that was it.
Yeah, I watched the linebacker drills quite a lot today. And one thing I noticed, they were physical. They were doing drills with hitting. Now I'm talking about guys with just helmets. And they were hitting the practice helpers, or whatever you call these guys, holding the dummies up. But they were making sure they got low and they were making contact and hitting. But the big point you put on it is there's bodies out there. They just got to pull the potential out and find somebody that can play. They got to find somebody that they can put in and they can trust to hold it down if Cedric goes down for a play or a series. They just haven't found who that guy is. They just got to find who it is.
Yeah, in closing on the defense, I think one reason Carolina fans should have a little bit of optimism about the unit collectively being better is because there's competition back there. Because they've recruited well, because they brought in a lot of players who can play, there is competition. At times, they haven't played the depth. As Max said, but the depth, you have to be able to trust the depth. If a starter is really tired, at what point does a guy behind him become better for a few snaps because the starter's tired, catching his breath, regaining his strength? That's that fine line question. I think that, honestly, for the last few years, they haven't had tremendous faith they could go too far into the depth on defense. I think now they believe that they'll be able to, certainly by the middle of the season, and in some areas I think they can right now. Up front defensively, they have a lot of bodies they trust. I think they will have a contingent that they really trust at safety by the time that they get to Charlotte with Will Hardy and Gio Biggers and Don Chapman and Stick Lane. I think that's pretty good foursome. And at corner, I think they feel really good. They love Elijah Huzzy. kid from East Tennessee State. They love him, and they think Marcus Allen's going to be a big-time player. And then they really think Tayon Holloway's going to play himself into a role. And then, oh, by the way, a guy who started close to 30 games at Virginia Tech also at corner. So I think that there's reason for optimism that the defense will be significantly better. But let's remember, when you're the number 115 or whatever defense in America, significantly better might say 80 or 85. I think they need to be much better. They need to cut that number in half. If this team is going to contend for anything significant, and it also means Drake. I mean, Drake needs the defense to be a lot better so they can win enough games that he contends for the Heisman, which I know is not on his thought process right now, but it should be something the fans think about because this program needs to layer some really good things. And if you can add a Heisman Trophy winner, suddenly you're like sort of a football school somewhat, right? You add to your football history when you do that. If you can win 10 games for this the second time since Mac left, that adds to stuff like that. And that's what they're trying to build in this program. So the defense must cut that number in half. Cutting that number in half would be mid-50s, upper 50s. I think at least they have to be there. Don't you agree?
And I agree. I really like Huzzy. You can tell he's that guy. And when he walks off the sideline, you can tell he's that guy. Don't get me wrong. He's not, flashy, No
frills.
Right. But you can tell that you don't want to line up on this guy. He means business, and he's a ball hawk. Marcus Johnson, I just need to see more. We've seen glimpses in the state game. Of course, they've seen a lot more than what we've had.
So young.
Yeah, and he still is. He still is. So I just need to see more. I'm just unsure about him just yet, but that's something we're going to have to see week 1, week 2, week 3. How do they perform?
Well, Marcus Allen went from not really getting on the field at all to playing a lot overnight and did pretty well, all things considered. And I thought he played really well in the Oregon game where there were a lot of challenges that game. They just think that there's so much potential there and they could be a really, really good player. They love Holloway. I'm telling you right now, guys, think Tayon Holloway. Maybe not a ton for 2023, but certainly maybe 2024. Although Huzzy's got 2 more years too. He's got 2 years. A lot of these transfers have 2 years.
Yeah.
Stick Lane's a graduate, but he got 2 years. Walker has 2 years. McCollum has 2 years. Lampkin has 2 years. Willie Lampkin, the offensive lineman. That's Ryan Coe, the place kicker, has 1. Huzzy has 2. Derek Allen has 1. Who am I missing over there on defense? Am I missing anybody else? Oh, Chapman. Armani Chapman has 1.
Okay.
This is his last year as well. So, but quite a few of them have 2. So I think when you go to the portal and you can get a college graduate like Stick Lane who's got 2 years, that's pretty good stuff. And that's what they have. Any last thoughts? This has been maybe the longest podcast, certainly the longest daily drop ever. It's also going to run later than any daily drop in THI history, in the brief 3-month history of the daily drop.
Man, football season's back. We just got caught up. Day 1 of college football is back, baby.
Yeah, I had a great time with you today. Great job. We're going to bring you on and do a lot more of this football stuff throughout the season. We need to get you, Brandon, and me on one of these things. I could just sit back and let you guys talk.
Let's do it.
And don't forget, guys, if you want to make a great first impression, start putting that stuff on your face. It takes 45 seconds in the morning, 45 seconds in the evening. Face, eyes, and you will, as Jacob says, I think he says, you will increase your chances to make that right impression with the right people, whoever that may be. CalderaLab.com, promo code THI, you save 20%. So all Carolina, Caldera Lab thinks pretty highly of Carolina fans and knows a lot of you guys out there need to fix the face or keep the face going. 20% off. Tar Heel fans, just use THI as your promo code and you can score big on Caldera Lab. And pay attention to these drops so you can see my face change. And if you in a week and a half, you think, man, AJ looks pretty good right now, or you think, boy, AJ doesn't look so terrible anymore, then you can put some credit on Caldera Lab because I will be working it until it shows some kind of improvement. I tell you right now, my daughter will be the telltale because she is brutally honest. She likes to ask me what it was like the day dirt was invented. I told her it was breaking news. She laughs, and she likes to remind me about my nose. Now, Caldera Lab can't do anything about the size of my nose. But they can do something about these wrinkles. They can do something about this stuff over here. Unfortunately, I have a lot of crow's feet for my age. You can see this. I don't sleep much. So let's see how it goes. I'm probably putting a lot of pressure on the product, trying to make me look good. But hey, if it's 5%, then that's something.
That's right.
He's Trey. I'm AJ. Thanks for stopping by.